Hello, there's been some mixed news that's come out about the Lego Trains hobby in the last 36 to 48-ish hours. So this is going to be a quick overview of what's come out in that time. Firstly, I'd like to apologise if my voice doesn't sound quite right. I've had flu over the last 5-ish days, so my voice is probably still a little croaky. I'm still suffering a little from it. The first big news really is what came out yesterday on the 8th, is that Big Ben Bricks is actually closing. Now, for those who don't know what Big Ben Bricks is, BBB, as the initials are, was the first manufacturer of aftermarket Lego train wheels for the Lego train hobby. Back in the days when I think 9V was still around. Might have been the tail end of 9V, start of the plastic rail era. I'm not quite sure. I didn't do as much research into this as maybe I should. But Big Ben Bricks was the, if you like, the pivotal moment of when we started to get more detailed trains. It's when the community as a whole started to actually build more detailed steam locomotive models, and even some diesel juntas and that sort of stuff. And it's, the Lego train hobby as we know it today wouldn't be here without Big Ben Bricks wheels and rods. And it's a legacy, if you like, that we wouldn't be here without that, without Big Ben Bricks being here. Lego themselves, actually did consult with Ben when they introduced the new wheel component for the Emerald Knight. So, Big Ben Bricks came before Lego did, and everything we've got wheel-wise in terms of the diameters and that sort of stuff kind of stems from what Ben did with all the wheels initially. So, a big thanks to Ben for all these efforts in regards to Big Ben Bricks. Since then, we've obviously had other things pop up. We've had Brick Tracks pop up with their new injection molded wheels that say you don't have to have washers, you don't have to use glue, and all the axles and da-da-da-da. And again, Brick Tracks has sold within the last couple of months, to Brick Forge, I want to say it is. So Brick Tracks again has moved on, but at least we know it's in safe hands. And I did query the owner of Brick Forge with it on one of the Discords about whether he'd be buying up Big Ben Bricks, and the answer was no. So unfortunately, you won't get everything from Brick Forge isn't hoovering up everything. I don't think the other half would be very interested in that. Certainly not from the financial perspective. But yeah, it is. There's still some question marks over what's going to happen to Big Ben Bricks once after its closure, whether it is bought by somebody else, whether the moulds are just going to storage or something like that. The moulds themselves are actually located in the US, so they are an American product. So probably means that unless you get new moulds done in the country you're in, the person taking it over would likely stick to America, unless they want to pay all the fees to get those moulds moved somewhere else. And at that point, you're probably better off getting new moulds made from the existing designs, or maybe tweaking the design slightly and getting new moulds cut. It depends. I'm not an expert in these things. I defer to more intelligent, more experienced people in those fields. And I'd class myself as an interested layman. I know enough about it from studying it as part of school or college or as a hobby, but I'm no expert. So really, we owe the modern Lego Trains hobby in effect to Big Ben Bricks. So thank you, Ben, for everything you've done for the hobby. And we wouldn't be here without you. The other bit of news that's come out today, and the images came out today as well. I'm not sure whether it was a leak and then the official release happened at the same day or what, but the images have come out from this year's Winter Village set, which is 10361 the Holiday Express train. So this is a 4-car or 4-unit train, consisting of a steam outline locomotive. It's not a steam locomotive in the effect of it's got the actual Lego steam loco wheels on it or connecting rods, all that sort of stuff. It is a steam outline loco, so it's got bogies on it, so it's very similar to the 9-volty sort of Hogwarts Express when that came out as a 9-volt compatible set. It's also got a little toy container car behind the loco, a polar bear car as I'm calling it, which has like an animated polar bear. And then it's got a passenger coach right at the end, although it doesn't have doors, it doesn't have steps, it's, very much a mixed bag. This set also includes the first 3D printed Lego accessory available to the public. Now, there have been 3 other accessories. Now, I only knew about the 2, I have to admit, so the 3 accessories that have previously been released by LEGO that are known about, because obviously there's probably been some that have been internal that we don't know about, has been the duck, which was available on the Bill and Inside tour. We have had the engineer's desk rule, I think it is, or something along those lines, which was on one of the designer desks and it clipped in so you could move the pen around or something along those lines. That was a 3D printed part. You can use other parts if you don't have the set, but that was designed for that role. And the third part was a pogo stick. Now, I didn't know about the pogo stick, but I searched it. There's one on eBay for something stupid like £800,000. More than a good house in this country. That's how much it's valued, or tried to be valued at least. And obviously, this is the first mass-produced thing. Like the duck, it does actually function, so the wheels go around and the smoke in the chimney moves, I think it is, so there's a little bit of a play feature in that, which you couldn't get with traditional injection moulding, because obviously when you do it as an injection mould, you'd probably have to do it so that you'd either have to do 2 moulds of the halves to do the mechanism and then you'd snap them together, or it would be that you'd do it as the train would be hollow and then you'd attach whatever mechanism was going through the funnel to the wheels and do it that way. Those are both complicated. It adds extra tooling costs when you're doing it as an injection mould and everything else, so it makes more sense to do something like that as a 3D print. And obviously LEGO has enough confidence in both the manufacturing capabilities and of the technology to actually do this in a bulk public release set, especially considering it's winter time, and appropriately for LEGO, it is of a train. I should have pointed that out. So it's, we've had the duck. The duck is in effect the LEGO quote-unquote mascot of the wooden era. The train came out not long after the duck, I think. There was that animation LEGO did several years ago about the LEGO story. And one of those bits was that there was a batch of trains sent out and one of the sons saved some money by not applying, I think it was 5 coats, he only applied 4 coats of lacquer or something, so he had got them back, did all the final coat, then took them back to the station. There's all that story about, how good LEGO is, as were. So obviously there's all that stuff about, the quality, if you like. The set takes a break from other trains. It doesn't use the magnetic couplers. Now, the previous Christmas train did, so I'm not sure whether this is a cost-cutting measure, whether it's a production issue, so maybe they couldn't get the magnetic buffer beam parts assembled manufactured in time, or maybe there wasn't enough demand to make them just for this one set. Obviously, this set would require 7 of them, I want to say. The front of the loco doesn't have one, so you'd have the rear of the loco and then 2 for each subsequent wagon. So obviously that's a bit of a change. Obviously that means then that it's no longer compatible with other trains, but then is that really an issue if you're just buying it because it's the winter train? The other thing is that there's barely a platform on it. It's a little, I think it's a 6x6 plate as the platform, so it's not really big enough to do much. It's enough to step up onto the passenger coach, I suppose, and that's all you need it for. But again, if you're buying it as a complete set, it does seem a bit odd that you've gone, everything's nice and chunky and then you've got this tiny little platform. Whether that means that there's going to be another Winter Village station next year in 2026 remains to be seen. You know, that did happen with the one previously. They released the train, then released the station the following year, and obviously because the previous year set is normally available along with the current one, it made sense for you to do that, and obviously that means then that when you go to 2027, you get the 2026 and 2027. So obviously if the station comes out next year in 26, you'll have the station in 26, and then whatever set comes out in 27. So obviously if you don't have the train, the station does not quite make as much sense, if that as such. Although it might be that Lego decide to keep the train around an extra year or something, or maybe, who knows? You know, Lego works in mysterious ways sometimes. Now, obviously, this I would point out above all else that when Lego makes sets like this, they're not for the enthusiasts. They're made for families. They're made for individuals who maybe want that Americanism of a train under the tree. You know, it's not really. I don't really think it's a thing as much in Britain. But certainly it is sort of the American thing of there's always the train under the tree. I'm not quite sure why. It always seems a bit either lost in translation or just lost on me. And you can actually motorise it as well. The back of the box art does include a very obvious and very bad example of the motorisation, where you have the battery box in the container car, which then has a wire going through into the cab, which then feeds the motor underneath the rear of the loco. It's not a pretty motorisation. I will be blunt here. It is not pretty. It is functional. You know, if you want to have the train go around, it is functional. But it is not pretty. If it was going to be me, I appreciate the fact that they've tried to go for Steam. It's nice. But I'd maybe say you'd be better off doing maybe a bit more of a chunkier steam loco and having it with actual driving wheels, or maybe losing one of the cars or whatever. Because bear in mind, when the train released however many years ago, it had a loco and tender plus the flat car plus the passenger coach, you know. So we've kind of regressed in a way, because it's still a steam locomotive. I mean, the loco set we had a few years ago wasn't the prettiest of steam locos, it has to be said, but it did look like a steam loco. This one is definitely a more steam outline. It is designed to quote unquote looks kind of like a steam engine, but it's kind of like when you have a roller coaster designed like a steam locomotive. It kind of works, you kind of get the theme, but it's still not a steam loco. So it tries to appeal to the traditional without being traditional itself, if that makes sense. So yes, it's a nice set. I will probably be getting one for nothing else other than the fact that it's a loco. I don't have all the Winter Village sets. I do have the train and the station over there. So about 2-3 meters away, I do have the station. The stickers are glaring out from the box, asking to be applied. I have yet to apply them. So I will probably be looking to doing the train at some point. But yeah, you know, it's an interesting time for Lego trains. Now, the other thing is, in addition to everything I just discussed, it's obviously the big thing about aftermarket parts now, because HA Bricks do rods and do wheels to an extent, but they don't do driving wheels. Brecklin Bricks do driving wheels, but don't ship to the EU because of the new EU safety laws or certification laws or manufacturing laws of some description that basically mean you've got to have a guarantee that the product's suitable for sale and somebody's got to sign for it, and then they're liable. Now, that is feasible. It is something you can go up to pretty much any company that advertises that sort of service in the EU and say, I want to be able to sell in the EU, here's my product, and what's your fee for certifying this to make sure to say it's safe, and then, you know, have the liability. It is feasible, you can do that, but it will cost money, and that's the thing, is that if you're not in the EU, getting somebody to pay for that or at least do the testing and certification, or whatever is required to meet the law, costs money, and in often the cases isn't worth investigating if you're not going to have that bigger market. So then the problem is then if you need that that safety thing, we're losing Big Ben bricks. HA might do driving wheels in the future. They don't think they've publicly announced anything yet. I know they've been at least testing them. I think I've seen some sneak peek photos of some description in the past to say they're testing them, but they haven't publicly said that we're going to release them late 25, early 26 or anything like that. It's very much that if they are doing it, they're testing it, but there's no guarantee. There is no other wheel manufacturer in America, so out of everything that for steam driving wheels at least, Brick Track still do the Lego equivalent wheel for the aftermarket. So in effect, there is now an empty void, because with Big Ben bricks going and Brecklin bricks on a summer break and not shipping to the EU, we've pretty much ran out of aftermarket wheel manufacturers in less than a month. It is kind of, I wouldn't say it shouldn't be shocking, but it is shocking that the Lego enthusiast market for train parts is effectively reliant on 3 companies, and that's it. And all of a sudden it's all gone, pretty much. Now there are more to that. There's obviously all the track manufacturing and everything else, but in terms of the actual train wheels, you're reliant on 3. So who knows? The market's going to be very interesting for the next few months. I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to it, but I'm certainly looking forward to when Joe reopens Brecklin Bricks. I've got a few bits I need to order and get done. So that's it from the news and discussion video today. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll be doing some more of this soon. So that's it from me, and see you soon. Ish, maybe. Who knows?